මේක ධම්මට
නාමයේ රූපයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ රූපේ නාමයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ ස්නායු වලින්ද ලේ වලින්ද?
භවයට නේද?
දකන්
භවයට නේද?
නෑ මේකේ භවය කියලා නෑ වචනයක්
නැද්ද?
නෑ.
නෑ ඒක ඉතින් මේ ඒක හොඳයි ඉතින් වගේ වහන එකත් දෙන්නකො.
ඒක පළමු අපි ගමු අර ඊයේව මේවද.
ඊයේ එකක් මොකක්ද ඊයේ මට
අර මම උදේ අහලා අර ආනාපාන කරනත මෙහෙම
ඔව් ඒ ටික කියන්න ඔය ටික කියලා ඉතින්.
So this is like question from today will be taken later on. We have some still left over from yesterday. So this is from Frederick or Fred. So there were like 3 questions. So first one was when somebody is practicing a kind of intensive meditation and this practice is first few days just doing the Anapanasati or following the breath during the sitting, and rest of the day doing walking meditation and noting all activities. So after about 3 days starting noting everything even in the sitting, just like what is happening. So the question was, is it necessary to change the object in the sitting from the in and out breathing to noting everything? So අර තුනම කියන්න එක කියන්න. So අර පළමුවෙන් කිව්ව අර තනින් භාවනා කරනකොට අර දවස් 3ක් අර ආනාපානෙ විතරක් ඊට පස්සේ ඒක
ඉවර කරලා අනිත්.
ඔව්.
ඉතින් මේ ආනාපාන සතිය උගා දෙනක ඉතින් දවස් 2ක් භාවනා කරනවා 3ක් භාවනා කරලා ඊට පස්සේ වෙනත් අරමුණු ගන්න ක්‍රමයක් පුරුදු වෙලා තිනා මෑතක ඉඳලා. ඒ සතිපට්ඨානේ ආනාපාන සති සූත්‍රවල එහෙම කතාවක් නැහැ. මේක මේ දිගටම තියෙන එකක්.
So this is a kind of common practice these days so it's taught in different places that for 2 or 3 days you are supposed to do Anapanasati, that is observing your breath, and then change it to something else. So if you check the Satipatthana Sutta or the Anapanasati Sutta, that's the discourse on the mindfulness of in and out breathing, which is around 118 or 19 or something like that in Majjhima Nikaya. So in those 2 suttas there is nothing like that, like not saying like you should do it only 2 or 3 days and then do something else. It is the basis of the practice, like you do it all the time basically.
ආනාපාන සතිය දවස් 2ක් 3ක් කළාට කිසිම අවබෝධයක් ඇති වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
If you follow the breath for 2 or 3 days, you don't get any really any kind of special understanding whatsoever.
ඒක පුරුදු කරලා තිබිච්ච එක්කෙනෙකුට දවස් 2ක් කමන්නේ.
So for somebody that has already trained that before, this kind of specific understanding or realization can happen in short time, even within few days time, but not for a newcomer.
ඒක ඉතින් ආනාපාන සති සූත්‍රයේ 16 ආකාරයක් තියෙනවානේ.
So then in this mindfulness of breathing sutta from Majjhima Nikaya, there are about 16 different ways of practice or like development of the practice when you follow Anapana.
ඉතින් බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ ආනාපාන සතියෙමනේ පුරුදු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
So even the Buddha himself trained or was doing this mindfulness of breathing.
බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ පරිනිබ්බාණයට පත් වෙන දවසේ ආනාපාන සතියේ සමවැදුනේ.
So even at the time of passing away, the Buddha was like just before passing away, he was practicing also the mindfulness of in and out breathing.
ඉතින් උන්වහන්සේ නේව සංඥා නා සංඥා යතනතම කියන්නේ. ඉතින් ආනාපාන සතිය අර පුරුදු කරලා ඒකෙන් පටන් අරන් ඉතින් අරමුණ එනිච්චා නේව සංඥා නා සංඥා අතනිටම
So in that sutta itself, you can see how, because when the Buddha was passing away, he was going through all these attainments up to this, uh, that is the sphere of neither perception, non-perception, which is the fourth immaterial absorption. But his practice, even that before passing away, was started with following the breath, and by following that object, he managed to go through all the jhanas up to the highest one.
ඊට පස්සේ ආනාපාන සතිය එතකොට නිරෝධ සමාපත්තිය සමවැදුණා ඊට පස්සේ.
So what came afterwards was this attainment of Nirodha Samapatti, is like a cessation of perception and feeling.
නිරෝධ සමාපත්තියේ ඉන්න වෙලාවේ ආනන්ද හාමුදුරුවෝ අහනවා අනුරුද්ධ හාමුදුරුවන්ගේ භාග්‍යවතුන් වහන්සේ මේ පින්නම් පෑවන්නේද? නෑ ආනන්ද මේ නිරෝධ සමාපත්තියේ ඉන්න වෙලාව.
So at that point, Venerable Ananda, who was the Buddha's attendant and was standing nearby, asked Venerable Anuruddha, now Venerable Anuruddha, is it that the Blessed One has passed away now? So then Venerable Anuruddha told him, no, friend Ananda is not like that. He has now just attained the attainment of cessation.
නිරෝධයෙන් බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ අරිහත් ඵලයට ආවා.
So from that, the Buddha emerged into the fruition attainment. Arahat fruition attainment.
අරිහත් ඵලයේ කොයි විමුක්තියෙන්ද මෙතෙන්ට පත් වුනේ කියලා එතෙන්ට ආවා.
So whatever door to liberation was used to attain that, then through that he came back to Kamavacharitada.
ඊළඟට අරූපාවචරයට ආවා.
Through to like came out of the attainments through that, and then he attained the other immaterial attainments.
රූපාවචරයෙන් අරූපාවචරයෙන් රූපාවචරයට චතුර්ථ ධ්‍යාන.
So because like from the attainment of cessation, the Buddha was like backtracking. So first he went to this, he emerged through whatever liberation was that, and the Arahat fruition, then the sphere of neither perception nor no perception, and the lower immaterial jhanas. Then with the last one, he emerged into the fourth absorption, and so on.
ඊට පස්සේ චතුර්ථ ධ්‍යානෙට ආවා. චතුර්ථ ධ්‍යානෙන් නැගිලා ස්වභාවික ආනාපානයට ආවා.
So once he emerged from the first absorption, then what was there again was the natural breath.
ආනාපානයෙන් පස්සේ උන්වහන්සේ පරිනිබ්බාන.
So after the normal breath was there, then at that time was the dying moment. So that was the like last breath, and the Buddha passed away.
ඉතින් කොච්චර මේ ආනාපානෙ පුරුදු කරපු දෙයක්ද මේ තවත් දෙකෙන් තුනෙන් ඒක කරලා අයින් කරනවායි කියන එක හරිම විහිළුවක් නේ.
So then this talk of following the breath for only 2 or 3 days and then doing some like forcefully removing oneself from that, it's almost like a joke, because you can see how much further the practice of that is based on following the breath can be taken.
ඊළඟට මේ ලංකාවේ සිතුල් පහුවේ හාන්නමක් මේ ආනාපාන සතිය උගා පුරුදු කරලා මේ හිතගෙන පිරිනුවම් පෑවා ඉරක් ගාලා සක්මනේ.
So then there was this in the old days of Sri Lanka, there was a monk practicing in one of the famous forest monasteries called Situlpawa. So he was a practitioner of Anapana. Like his main practice was following the breath. So he's famous because he was an Arahat, and when he knew his death was approaching, he told the monks, now you might have not seen or even heard about somebody attaining the like passing away of an Arahat while walking. So I will show you that. And he drew a line on ground and said, just watch me carefully. I will be walking up to that point, and at the point where this line on ground is drawn, at that point I will pass away. And then he started walking mindfully and passed away exactly on that spot.
ආනාපාන සතිය එතකොට මේ පුරුදු කරනවා හුඟා දෙනෙක් මේ සමාධිය බහුල කරගන්න.
So many people practice this mindfulness of in and out breathing in order to attain like strong concentration or strengthen their concentration.
ඔව් ඉතින් ඒක මේ දහමේ හොඳටම ප්‍රකට දෙයක්.
ඒ කියන්නේ
දැන් අපේ සූත්‍රවල එහෙම
ඔව්
ඔව් මේ ආනාපාන
ප්‍රකට
ප්‍රකට
වචන
කියන්නේ මේ හුඟා ප්‍රසිද්ධ දෙයක් ඒක.
So it is a kind of well-known fact about in and out breathing meditation that is there also in the scriptures, that it is supposed to lead to very peaceful, calm mind.
ඔව් ආනාපානේ පුරුදු කරන්න පුළුවන් ක්‍රම 3කට.
So there are about 3 ways of practicing this in and out breathing meditation.
ඔව් එකක් ධානය වලින් නතර වෙන විදිය.
So one is a practice which stops at the level and stays at the level of the absorptions.
අනිත් එක ධානය වල නතර වෙන්නේ නැතුව කිරීම මේ අරිහත්ත්වයේ සඳහා.
So the other practice does not stop at all at the level of absorptions and leads directly towards realizing full liberation arahatchi.
ඊළඟට මේ එකක් තියෙනවා මිත්‍යා ක්‍රමයක් මේ හදවත නතර කරන්න පුළුවන්.
And there is another way which is actually a wrong kind of technique or approach which can be practiced if one wants to train to stop one's heart.
ඔව් ඉතින් මේ වගේ එකක් දැන් අපේ නායක ආණ්ඩුව පෙරුකායි නායක ආණ්ඩුව නැති වෙන වෙලාවේ.
So there was this very famous Sri Lankan monk which was considered as an arahat. He popularized Dhamma quite well. He's called Venerable Rerukane Chandavimala. So now this is a story from the time when he was about to pass away.
ධම්මානන්දට කියන්නේ අවසානම හුස්ම ටික බලන්න මේ අවසාන මගේ අවසාන හුස්ම ටික බලන්න. එතකොට අවසාන හුස්ම ටික දකින්න තරම් මේක පුරුදු කරනවා.
So now as he was about to pass away, he told his attendant monk, now which is this monk is called Venerable Dhammananda. So he said, now Dhammananda, watch the last few breaths of somebody. And that was happening. So Lokam says, a real practitioner of this mindfulness of in and out breathing practices up to the death, like up to the moment you are dying, you follow the breath and know about the breath.
යාර මේ හදවතේ ස්පන්දනේ ඒක නතර කරන එක මම පුරුදු කරලා තියෙනවා.
So the third way that Lokam said was a kind of wrong practice when you can train this watching the breath and train how to stop your own heart. That is something that Lokohamdo himself has done in the past.
ඔයක මම තරුණ කාලෙමයි පුරුදු කරා.
When he was really young, so he was doing all kind of stuff. So one of them was this.
ඉතින් මම එහෙම කරලා ඉන්නවා.
So I was doing that, like I trained myself in that and was like doing those things.
ඉතින් මේක කාටවත් කියන්නේ.
But I didn't tell anybody.
ඉතින් මට අසනීපයක් හැදුණා.
So at that time I got quite sick.
ඔව් ඉතින් මම ගෙනිච්ච සුලේමන් එකට කොළඹ සුලේමන් ඉස්පිරිතාලෙට.
So I was taken to one of the Colombo hospitals.
ඊළඟට මාව ECG වලට දාලා බලන්න.
So they connected Lokohamdo to ECG and other things to get a reading because he was quite sick.
ඉතින් මට හිතුණා මේ මම මේ හදවත ස්පන්දනේ තේරෙන්නේ නැති කාට නතර කරනවනේ මේක ඇත්තද බොරුද කියලා බලන්න.
So because I practiced this kind of wrong practice before, I thought, oh, this is the good time to learn if I just was thinking that the heart stopped or if I really managed to stop it, the heart really, because before that it was just Lokohamdo's own understanding. So he decided to put it into like a test.
මගේ දෙවනියක් කතාව මාව ඉස්පිරිතාලට අරන් ගියා.
So it was my like Lokohamdo's 3 elder sisters. So the middle one was the one that brought Lokohamdo to this hospital.
ඉතින් දැන් ඒක නෝමල් නිකන් දුවනවා. දැන් ඉතින් මැරිලත් නැහැ. ඉතින් දැන් දැනගත්තා මගේ වැඩක් කියලා. හොඳටම මට අක්කා බැන්න. ඉතින් ඉස්පිරිතාලේ කියලා බැලුවා.
So I started doing this practice and then I reached flat line. So the other people were freaking out, but they could see he was not dead, but there was a flat line there. So then the sister immediately understood this. He must be doing something. So then she started scolding him severely.
ඔව්. මට කිව්වා දැන් මෙතනත් ඇවිල්ලා එක එක පිස්සු ඒවා කරනවා මේ ඩොක්ටර්ලත් වැඩ කරගන්නේ.
So
ඉතින්
she
මං
said
අතෑරුවා.
something like that.
ඒක.
Now you are continuing with your crazy stuff even here in the hospital. Are you ashamed to like test these poor doctors like that? Things
ඔව්.
like that.
ඒක තමයි. ඉතින් මේකේ මේක අපි දන්නේ නැහැ කියන්නේ. මේ ආනාපානේ එක එක විවිධ දේවල්.
So we are not aware of that, but there are like these different various things that are connected with this in and out breathing.
ඔව්. ඉතින් මේවා මේ ලෝකේ තියෙන දේවල් මිත්‍යා දේවල් තියෙනවා. ඒතකොට සම්මා දේවල් තියෙනවා.
So in the world there are this what is called, let's say, wrong practices and right practices or correct one. So both of them are available in the world.
ඉතින් මේ සම්මා දේ පුරුදු වීම අන්තිම හොඳයි.
So if you train on the samma part, it's called, like in English it's translated as a right or correct or something like that. So if you practice on the right side, so in other words, it's what is matching with the Buddha's explanation how to develop oneself. We can call that this what is right or correct. So if you do it on that side, then it is really good.
හරියටම එයා අවසාන පුදුජනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එයාට පුළුවන් අවසාන හුස්ම ටික මේ ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න මේ වෙලාවයි කියලා එච්චර පුරුදු කරනවා.
So even if the person is a common person, is somebody that has no really special like liberations at all, but if he is somebody that has practiced this in and out breathing meditation quite a lot, is very familiar with that, such a person still will be able or might be able to foretell his death occasion, like before the death happens. Such a person might be able to say beforehand, like at that point of time I am going to pass away in such a way or something like that.
මගේ පියා කිසිම ආගමක් අදහන්නේ.
So my own father was not following any kind of religion or faith.
ඉතින් බුදුදහම විශ්වාස කරනවා.
So but he believed in the Buddha's teachings.
ඉතින් ඒ වුණාට මේ පන්සල් යන්නේ.
But he was not in the habit of going to some temples for functions and other stuff.
ආමුදුන්ට වඳින්නෙත් නෑ. මට මාව නම් පෙන්නන්නවත් බෑ.
So even though he was Sri Lankan, he was not officially like normally paying respects to the monks, and Lokam said I could not like show myself in front of him at all.
නමුත් එයා මොකද්ද ක්‍රමයක් පුරුදු කළා.
But he was anyway, he had his own practice. Anapana. Some kind of practice connected with in and out breathing.
පොඩි පැල්පතක් හදාන්න ඒකේ තමයි හිටියේ. පැල්පතක් පොඩි.
So he was staying in some kind of Cajun hut. So in a like small hut somewhere in the garden, just spending his last years there.
ඒකට වමනා කරන ඔක්කොම ගිහින්ද.
So he was given all the necessities. It was his own choice. He preferred to stay like that. So the family was just bringing him what he asked for, and he was staying at peace in this small hut in the garden.
මැරෙන වෙලාව එදා රාත්‍රී කිව්ව අහවල් වෙලාවට ආවලා මේ විදිහට මේ වෙලාවේ මැරෙනවා.
So very strangely for the family, one evening he came and said, now, which was not his habit, because he was normally staying in the hut, but one evening all of a sudden he came in the house and said, now listen, tomorrow morning at like around breakfast at this time I am going to pass away, so I need to get ready for that.
ඉතින් මට අයියා කිව්වා තාත්තට පිස්සු වැඩි වෙලා අහන්නේ.
So that evening or that night I got call from one of my brothers telling me, oh now listen brother, now father's craziness has gotten really much more intensive today.
හරියට තප්පරෙන් මැරිලා.
So but actually to see what the father told the family was exact. So at the time he predicted in the morning as he was sitting down to eat, he just collapsed and died at this exact time.
මැරෙන්ඩ ඉස්සෙල්ලා උමනා කරන්නේ ඔක්කොම ඇඳගෙන රැවුල කපලා
So, and he did
ඔක්කොම
all
වැඩ
the
ඉවරයි.
necessary stuff. So he took good bath and he had nice shave and put on like clothes that could be used for the burial and so on. So he got himself prepared for the funeral.
හැබැයි මලේ ඉඳගෙන
Hmm?
ඉඳගෙන මලේ ඉඳගෙන
Hmm.
ඇලවෙලා නෙවෙයි.
So and he did not die lying down. He died sitting by the table.
ඉතින් මේ කතාවලින් දැනගන්න මේ ආනාපානේ දවසෙන් දෙකෙන් අයින් කරන එක නෙමෙයි ජීවිතේම මරණ තාක් පුරුදු කරන ධර්මතාවය.
So from that one can understand that this for like meditation based on in and out breathing is not something for 2 or 3 days only. It can be really used for your all time, like all life practice.
මොකක්ද දෙනකොට ආනාපානේ මේ වේදනාවයි සංඥාවයි අරමුණු කරගන්න බැරි යනවා.
So but with many practitioners, what happens after some time, even short time, the feeling or experiencing and perception of the breath itself becomes very subtle or kind of disappears.
ඒක මේ නුවණ මදිකමට වෙන්නේ.
It is because of lack of kind of understanding or like let's say kind of wisdom while practicing.
ඉතින් අපි මේ කියා දෙන්න ඕනේ ඒක මේ ඒ වේදනා සංඥා දෙක අරමුණු කරගන්න බැහැනේ. බැරි නිසානේ මේ ආනාපාන තේරෙන්නේ නැත්තේ. ඒකට වෙන අරමුණක් කියා දෙන්න ඕනේ.
So when that happens, the yogi needs to be given another object, because like the actual object of the breath cannot be grasped by the practitioner. So an alternative meditation object is given.
ඊට පස්සේ ඒ අරමුණ ආයේ නැවත මේ ප්‍රකට වෙනවා ආනාපාන.
So as one is given this alternative object and practices that, again the in and out breathing might become quite clear.
ඊට පස්සේ අර දෙවනි අරමුණ පස්සේ ඉගෙන ගත්ත අතාරින්න.
So if that happens, and when that happens, then the practitioner is told to again forget the second object and go back to the first one.
ඊට පස්සේ නැවත ආනාපානේ පටන් අරන් ආයේ නැවත කරගෙන යනවා දිගට.
So from that, it's quite possible that the practice can go long just following the breath.
දැන් ඔය සතිපට්ඨාන සූත්‍රයේ ආනාපාන සතිය මේ සමථ පැත්තට එනකන් කියනවා.
So in the Satipatthana Sutta, there's the discourse on mindfulness, establishments of mindfulness. There is like partial instruction about following the breath or mindfulness of in and out breathing, and becomes it's explained up to the level where samatha or the tranquility level of practice arises.
ඊට පස්සේ ඉති අජත්තං වා කායි කායානුපස්සී බහිද්ධාවා කායන අජත්ත බහිද්ධාවා කාය. ඒකට යන්න ඒ විපස්සනාවට හරවන්න අර ආනාපාන සතිය පුරුදු වෙනවා.
So at that point in the Satipatthana Sutta, what follows is the part where the practice turns from samatha or tranquility practice into insight practice. That's the place which goes something like that. Thus he dwells contemplating the body internally and externally and both, and the nature of arising, passing away, and both.
ඒකට මේ අජත්ත බහිද්ධ දෙකම තේරෙනවා. සමුදේවයි මේ හටගන්න එකයි නැති වෙන එක. දැන් ආනාපාන සතියේ ආරම්මනේ මේ මම කියලා ගන්න එකයි මම නැතුව අරමුණ ගන්න එකයි.
So this internally and externally occurrences, that is the level when the practice reaches that level. Sometimes the meditator experiences the self and the object of the breathing, or sometimes without the self or within the self, and so on.
අජත්තව ගන්නකොට මම කියලා මම ආස්වාස ප්‍රාස්වාස වෙන කරනවා බහිද්ධව මම නැතුව ආස්වාස ප්‍රාස්වාස වෙනවා.
So sometimes it's I and in and out breathing are going on. Sometimes there is like the sense of I is not there, it's just the in and out breathing.
ඒකට සමුදේවයත් තියෙනවා.
So then similar way, this so-called arising and passing away.
ඉතින් මේක මේ තාවකාලික දවස් දෙක තුනකට කරන්න එපා. දිගටම මේක පුරුදු කරන්නේ කියලා මම මේ මතක් කරනවා.
So Lokam basically put Gavi Nogi.
ඔව් ගෙවි ගියොත් වෙන අරමුණක් මෙනෙහි කරලා ගුරුවරයාගෙන් අහගන්න.
Usmatenavanam
ඔව් කමන්නේ.
So because of that, Lokam says if the breath itself is there and observable, no need to like remove oneself forcefully from that. You can continue the practice while observing the breath. If the breath itself kind of disappears, then you might need an like alternative object. But if it's there, you don't have to stop following the breath.
සත්‍යයා මව්කුසේ හටගත්ත දවසේ ඉඳලා මේ මේ මනුස්ස ලෝකෙ එළිය දකින්නක එදා ඉඳලා ආස්වාද ප්‍රාස්වාද අවුරුදු 10ක් 20ක් 30ක් 40ක් 50ක් 60ක් 70ක් 80ක් 90ක් ඉඳලා මැරෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ මැරෙන දවස වෙනකම් මේ ආස්වාද ප්‍රාස්වාද වෙනවනේ. ඉතින් ඒක දකින්න බැරි එක වෙනම කතාවක්.
So now from the conception up to the moment, anyway, so when you are conceived in the mother's womb, it's a kind of different situation. So at one point, this being, human being, emerges mother's womb, and at that moment, that being starts breathing. This breathing might be going on for 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 70 years, 80, 90 years, or whatnot, up to the dying moment. So this is something that is going to be happening anyway up to the death. So that's one thing. The thing that sometimes people don't understand or cannot catch the breath or don't know about the breath, that is another thing.
ඒකට ඉතින් මට එච්චරයි කියා දෙන්න පුළුවන්.
So that's enough for this one.
ඒකේ තවත් තිබුණා දාන්න.
තව දෙතුනක් තිබුණා.
එකක් කියන්න.
එකක් තිබුණා දවස් එකට එක අර නිකන් ඉන්නකොට එක දෙපාරක් වාඩි වෙලා ඉන්නවා අතර මග අර සක්මනයි අර පුලුවන් තරම් අර මානසිකාරය කරන්න තව මොකක් හරි කරන්න දෙයක් තියෙනවාද?
එහෙනම් ඒකට කියන්න කමන්නේ ඒක ඉතින් ඒ සක්මන් කරන එක ඒ විදිහට කරගෙන යන්න මානසිකාර අතර දෙයක් නැහැ. ඉතින් ඒක ඒ විදිහටම කරගෙන යන්න සත්‍යය.
තුන්වෙනි තිබුණා හැබැයි මේ වගේ කරනකොට පළක් දවස්වල අර වාඩි වෙලා ඉන්නකොට ආනාපාන තමයි පළක් දවස්වල සිත එකඟ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ වගේ අවස්ථාවේදී වෙන එකක් තියෙනවා. So the second and third question were like this. So this person sits down once or twice or few times a day for sitting practice. Sometimes he's doing walking meditation, and in between that the same person tries to practice paying attention as much as is possible in the daily life. So first question was, is there anything more that can be done? So Lokam says no, basically this is really enough and good, so just try as much as possible, continue this one, this is really kind of good enough. So the extra question was, but if you do that, sometimes because of like different things that are happening in one's life, when you sit down for the sitting practice, the mind just won't settle down. So this person is using watching the breath as the practice for the sitting. So but in on those days where the mind just won't get settled and follow the breath, is there anything else that can be taken as the sitting practice?
තුන්වෙනි එකට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ දැන් ආනාපාන අපි කරගෙන යනවා. හොඳට ඇතැම් වෙලාවට මේ අසනීප තත්ත්ව නිසා වැටෙන්නේ නැතුව යනවා. පෙළක් වෙලාට මේ භෝජනය නිසා හැම වෙනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඍතුව නිසා ඒ වගේ විවිධ දේවල් නිසා එහෙම වෙනවා. තේරෙන්නේ නැති වෙන වෙලාවල් තියෙනවා.
සිත දුවනවා වෙදිනවා.
ඔව් සිත දුවනවා වෙන්නේමයි. සිත දුවනවා.
ඒකට මොකද්ද කරන්න?
එතකොට වෙන අරමුණක් මෛත්‍රිය හරි බුදු ගුණ හරි මෙනෙහි කරගෙන යන්න ඕනේ.
අර අසනීප මේ වගේ නිකන් රෙස්ට් එකක් ගන්න.
ඔව් එතකොට එන්නේ.
So now this is kind of this can happen for different reasons. So Lokam says sometimes it's difficult to understand the breath or watch the breath because you might be really tired, or because you are actually getting sick, or sometimes you might be just like hungry, or the body does not have enough energy to sustain you, or sometimes it might be the climate is quite difficult. So if it's because of that, then you should address the other things. Maybe just take a shower and eat properly and rest a bit and then try again. So at other occasions, it might be because you are kind of agitated because of something. So at those times, Lokam says one should try doing maybe a loving kindness meditation. It's instead of following the breath.
දැන් මේ ඊළඟ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නේ
Ara akasa tama.
ඒකත් තියෙනවා.
Okay. So there were two more questions. So one is still connected with practice. So it was something like I will just give the short version of that. So sometimes when you follow the breath, you achieve the level where the body kind of disappears, and it feels like you are there's just a kind of empty space and nothing else happening. So the person that was asking how to understand what is this kind of level of practice. Is it something like the endless sphere, like this attainment of the first immaterial attainments, or what is it?
ඉතින් මේ
Look at
තේරුණා මොකද්ද ආකාසානංචයතනේ ආකාසානංචයතනේ නෙවෙයි. ඉතින් මේක මේ භාවනා කරගෙන යනකොට ආනාපානය නිසා පස්සද්ධිය හට ගන්නවා. තද පස්සද්ධිය හට ගන්න යෝගී ඉන්නවා. කාය පස්සද්ධිය. එතකොට කය අරමුණු කරගන්න බෑ. අරමුණු වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
So Lokam says, now if somebody is, let's say, following the breath or some other of this observing of the body, meditation objects. So as one is with some yogis, what happens is the yogi attains very strong passaddhi or tranquility. So when this extremely strong tranquility arises in the practice, it is also on bodily level. And when that happens, the yogis, it's impossible for the yogi to actually understand or note any really bodily phenomena.
ඒ වගේ යෝගියට ගුරුවරයා කරුණාවෙන් කතා කරන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
So actually, for such a yogi, it is detrimental if the teacher shows any kindness and compassion.
ඔය මිත්‍යාවෙන් කඩන්න ඕනේ.
So
එයා මිත්‍යාවක වැටෙනවා.
So because at that point, the yogi is prone to fall into some wrong side of the practice. So the teacher needs to break off that or break that. So then the teacher needs to be really some very like severe or almost nasty person towards the student. So if the teacher is not like that, then it's not possible to save the practitioner from falling towards the wrong side. It is something that's there actually quite for many yogis. But mostly you can find it with white people, like foreigners.
කටාර රාජ්‍යයේ කෙනෙක් භාවනාවට ඇවිල්ලා මහාචාර්යවරයෙක් මේ මිනෝ ජෆා කියලා. ඉතින් භාවනා කළා මේ කොහොම ඉඳලා මං එයාට සැර වුණා. මිනිහා හිතුවේ මං තරහට කියලා. පස්සේ තමයි තේරුනේ මේ ඒක නෙමෙයි ඉතිහාට භාවනාව තියෙනවා කරන්න කියලා.
So there was a foreigner some time ago and that was training with Loko Hamudu. He was some kind of professor. Arab country was it? Jaffa?
නෑ මේ ඉංගලන්තේ ඉගෙන ගන්න කටාර වල කෙනෙක්.
Somebody from Qatar, but somebody that was like gained his education in the United Kingdom. So this professor from Qatar came to meditate some time ago with Loko Hamudu, and he got into this strong tranquility. And Loko Hamudu was very severe with him. So that guy thought, now Loko Hamudu himself, he's angry and that's or like has some problem with me and is angry with me. That's why he's like that. Only much later on he understood, no, I needed that, and Loko Hamudu was right. Like that for the teacher, there are occasions where the teacher needs to be severe. So because these days we don't get this like quality proper yogis like that. So because of that, the teachers don't have to get severe that often.
ඔව් මේ කාලේ ඉන්නවා මේ අරිහත් කියලා ඉන්නවා එහෙම හිතා ගන්නවා.
So
හරි
those
අමාරුයි.
these
දැන් ඔය
days we have the problem that there are people that consider themselves as arahats. So that's a
Okay.
kind of similar issue.
කෙලෙස් පේන්නෙත් නැහැ පස්සද්ධියෙන්ද.
So because of this kind of strong sense of calmness or tranquility, none of the defilements are to be seen at all.
කෙලෙස් හඳුනා ගැනීමටත් අපහසු තත්ත්වයක් මානසික.
It's like the mind has trouble of actually comprehending the defilements.
ඔව් ඉතින් ආකාසානං චෛතන්‍ය සුළු එකක්.
Hmm.
මාර්ගඵල ලැබුණ ආර්යත්වයට ගියා ඔය විදිහට තියෙනවා.
So if people think it might be they might be getting into this sphere of endless space, it's actually not such a big issue. Even if it's a wrong one, it's not such a big issue. If you compare them with people that are thinking they have attained some liberation, even arahatship.
මට වයස අවුරුදු 18ක් විතර ඇති මහාන වෙලා නැහැ මම භාවනා කරන්න එන.
When I was about 18, I was still not ordained, but I was coming to come to Buddha to meditate.
ඔව් 62 වගේ 62 වගේ.
In 1960, 62, something like that.
ඉතින් මේ මහත් භාවනා කරනවා. එක වයසක උපාසක මහත්තයෙක් එක පාටම පින්ඩපාත යනකොට අර ලොකු හාමුදුරන්ටත් ඉස්සෙල්ලා ගිහිල්ලා යනවා ඉස්සර වෙලා. ලොකු තේරම ලොකු හාමුදුරු ඉන්න ඒ හාමුදුරන්ට වැඩි පළවෙනියට යනවා. දානශාලාවට යනකොට මේ පින්ඩපාත.
So in those days, the monks it was called going for pindapata, but it was still within the center. But the monks and the lay people they organize in a row according to seniority and go to a dining hall where the food is like offered. So those days when Lokam was like teenager, 18 years old maybe, so there was this elderly guy who was practicing, and one of these days all of a sudden he went to the front of the line. So in front of all the senior monks, this lay person went in front of them.
ඉතින් ඒ පාසක මහත්තයාට භාවනා කියලා දෙන හාමුදුරුවෝ ඉතින් අතින් අල්ලගෙන ආපහු වැදගෙන එනවා. ඊළ පිටිපස්සට දානවා. ආයෙත් චුට්ටකින් ආයෙ ඉස්සරහට යනවා.
So the monk that was giving instruction to this elderly man caught him by hand and dragged him back from the front position, but this elderly guy again started going back to the front of the queue of people. So then this monk that was giving him instruction again had to drag him back.
ඉතින් ඇහුවා පස්සේ මොකද කියලා.
So then later on he was asked what was that about?
අරියත්වයට ගියාද?
So this elderly man replied, no, because I have attained arahatship.
ඉතින් අරියත්වයට ගිය තාලේ ඇහුවා.
Huh?
අරියත්වයට ගිය පාර ක්‍රමේ ඇහුවා. ආනකොට මේ පස්සද්ධිය තද්ද පස්සද්ධිය.
So this person, a person giving him instruction asked him the way how this arahatship was attained. So from that it was immediately understood this elderly guy achieved this extremely strong of tranquility in his practice.
මේ පස්සද්ධිය උපාදාන කරන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා කඩන්න ඕනේ.
So it is absolutely necessary to break off this kind of sense of tranquility before it starts being clung to.
ආය උපාදාන වුණොත් කාටවත් කඩන්න බෑ.
Once the practitioners develops any kind of clinging towards that, then afterwards it's impossible to break it for anybody.
කරන්න දෙන්නේ.
බුදුහාමුදුරන්ට පුළුවන්.
බුදුහාමුදුරන්ට පුළුවන්.
So now I ask if the Buddha might be able to. So Lokam say, yeah, the Buddha might be able to, but for us it's impossible.
අපිටත් පුළුවන් ඉතින් මා අවුරුද්දක් විතර යනවා.
Even for us it is possible, but it might take up to 1 year to get the person out of it.
තේරුම් ගන්න. ඉතින් ඒ ප්‍රශ්න ටික ඉවරයි නේද? දැන් ඊළඟට අලුත් ප්‍රශ්නයක්. නාමය රූපයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ රූපය නාමයට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්නේ ස්නායු වලින්ද නැත්නම් ලේ වලින්ද? ඒකයි ප්‍රශ්නේ.
So the question is something like that. There is this thing called materiality and another thing called mentality. So the question is basically how or where are these two connected or where is the kind of, so to say, touch point? Is it through that's, let's say, nerve system, or is it through blood?
ඔව්. නාමය කියන්නේ මේ එතකොට චෛසිකනේ.
Hmm. So
වේදනා,
anyway, this what
සංඥා,
is called
සංකාර.
mentality is mostly different mind concomitants or mind factors.
ඔව්. රූපය කියන්නේ මේ 28ක් රූප තියෙන ඒ මහා ධාතු හතරයි
So this
උපාදාන.
what is called materiality is the four great elements, and there are this I don't know how many factors of called derived materiality.
ඔව්.
28
කිය- හ්ම්.
Huh?
main 4 and another 24.
There are these 24 kinds of derived materiality. So those altogether give the so-called materiality.
ඔව්. ඉතින් දැන් මේ අපේ මව් කුසේක අපි ප්‍රතිසන්දියක් ගන්නවානේ.
So for a human being, so normally what happens, there is this occasion called relinking happening at the beginning of our new life as a human being.
කළා වූ කුසල කර්මයක්නේ. ඒ ප්‍රතිසන්දිය ගන්න.
So this relinking is about is a kind of a paled.
නෑ නෑ. දැන් අපි කළා වූ
Nisat.
කුසලයක් තියෙනවානේ. මනුස්ස ලෝකෙක අපි ඒ කුසලයක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ කුසලයෙන් ඇතිවෙච්ච ඵලය තියෙනවානේ. ඒක තමයි යම් වෙලාවක ඒක කර්මය. ඒක ඉතින් වෙලාවක ඉතින් සුදුසු තැනක මව් කුසේක ප්‍රතිසන්දිය ගන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම වෙන තැනකත් ගන්න පුළුවන්.
So the result of some kind of wholesomeness gives you kind of potential to for this like beginning of the life in some kind of existence. So some of these wholesomenesses, they give result that gives potential for a human birth. So what happens at the conception time is that this relinking happens, and one of this kind of wholesomenesses that gives suitable result for a human existence, kind of conditions that.
So ඒ කර්ම ස්වභාවය ප්‍රතිසන්දිය ගන්න සකස් වෙච්ච මව් කුසයක් වෙන්න ඕනේ.
So this is kind of like one thing is having this potential of this human existence as a result of some wholesome act. Other thing that is like another kind of supportive condition is some adequate mother's womb that is a kind of giving good place for that.
යක්ක සංයුත්තේ එක්තරා යකෙක් බුදුහාමුදුරන් අහනවා මේ සත්‍යය කොහොමද හටගන්නේ කියලා.
So in Samyutta Nikaya there is at the beginning, the first part is part with different verses. So one subsection of that is verses about or with yakkas, or let's say demons. So one yakka asks in that part, a yakka asks the Buddha, how does this being arise?
බුදුහාමුදුරුවෝ මේ එතකොට යක්කට කිය දේශනා කරනවා. පඨමං කලලං හෝති අබ්බුදා ජායතේ පේසි නිබ්බත්තතේ ඝනා පසාකා ජායන්ති කේසාලෝමානකා පිච.
So there is this stanza which kind of describes stage by stage different like things that are happening in the mother's womb.
ඔව්. සකස් වූ රූපයක් තියෙන්න ඕනේ ඒ කර්ම ශක්තියට ප්‍රතිසන්දිය ගන්න.
So this strength of the karma, this wholesome act that is good for the human birth, needs some kind of specific materiality of the mother's womb that is a kind of ready or matches that.
ඊට පස්සේ එතන නාම ධර්ම හට ගන්නවා.
So if that happens, then in connection with that materiality, some kind of mentality arises also.
ඊට පස්සේ ඉතින් විඥාන ස්වභාවය දිගට හවට ගන්නවා.
So after that, this consciousness start arising that.
එතකොට මේ රූපය නාමයට උදව්වක්, නාමය රූපයට උදව්වක් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
So it functions both ways. The materiality itself is supporting or helping the mentality, and also the mentality is supporting and helping the materiality.
ස්නායු කියලා කියන්නේ රූප කොටසක්.
What is called is now can a nerves lah.
nerves.
So the nerve system is part of the materiality bunch.
ඒක කාය දසකයට අයිති වෙන්නේ.
This is what is called Kaya Dasaka. Is one of the stages that was mentioned that happens in the mother's womb. So one of the stages called the Kaya Dasaka. So the Dasaka is like 10 that are connected with the body. So that stage is where these nerves are produced or arise.
ඉතින් භාව දසක, කාය දසක, වස්තු දසක කියන්නේ වස්තු දසක, කාය දසක, භාව දසක. ඉස්සෙල්ලා වස්තු දසක, ඊළඟට කාය දසක.
First 10 is the 10 called Vatu is like matter, or here it means like the basic thing and the heart. So then the next one is the bodily thing. So when the body is developing more, or the thing there is getting more and more in the shape of body, that is the place where the nerves are happening. And then there is 10 that are called have to do with let's say section, like orientation, if the being is going to be a male or female. So that's the last 10, and there are some other things that are developing in that part.
වස්තු දසකයයි කාය දසකයටයි පස්සේ තමයි රුධිරය ඇඟේ හටගන්නේ. රුධිර ලේ වලින්ද කියලා
level හතරෙන් කොහොමද
ලේ හටගන්නේ ඇඟේ?
ඔව්.
පළවෙනි දසකයයි දෙවෙනි දසකයයි අරුණට පස්සේ තුන්වෙනි දසකෙ ඉස්සෙල්ලා. වස්තු දසකේ
පහු වෙලා
ඔව් කාය දසකේ පහු වෙලා එතකොට භාව දසකේ හැදෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා
so what the normal like some kind of blood and like blood system happens between the second 10 and third 10. So the 10 that are connected with the body are kind of finished, and the 10 that have to do with the orientation of male and female have not come to like being developed. So in between those, the blood starts functioning and being produced. So afterwards, this is more or less kind of finished completely, almost completed human being, and that just goes on.
දැන් හදවතක් හැදිලා හදවතක් ස්පන්දනය වෙන්න පටන් ගන්නවානේ. ඒතකොට රුධිරය හැදිලා ඒක වෙනම එකක්. ඒක මේවට මේ නාම රූප වලට රූප වල ස්වභාවයක්. නාම වලට කිසි සම්බන්ධයක් නැහැ.
So the actual physical heart and like blood system, or like system of veins and the blood pumping through that and so on, that is completely to do with something to do with body. It has nothing to do with the mentality really.
ස්නායු පද්ධතිය මේ නාමයන්ට ටිකක් වැඩියෙන් උදව් කරනවා.
But what is called nerve system is kind of connected, has to do really more than the rest of the things, something to do or some connection with the mentality part.
මේ දෙකම මේ අරූපාවචරදී අයින් කරනවා.
So but anyway, both
අරූපාවචර සමාපatti වල
so at the level of immaterial absorptions, those are anyway removed, like they are not applicable at all.
ඒක ඉතින් කියා දෙන්න බෑ. ඒක භාවනා කරලා හදා ගන්න ඕනේ. අරූපාවචරදී දැන් මේ ශරීරයක් මේ ස්නායු ලේ කතා නැහැ. ඒ ධ්‍යානයේ සමාධියෙන් පස්සේ. ඉතින් ඒක කියා දෙන්න ඉතින් ඒක වැඩක් නැහැ මේ කියලා.
No, look, I said like, now if you want to know about the immaterial absorptions, really the only way to do that is attain it yourself basically. But the thing is, once you have gotten into this attainment or this immaterial absorption, like nothing of the body plays any part at all. All of it is on the immaterial sphere, which is to do only with mentality.
මේ තත්ත්වය මේ භෞතික ශරීරය තුළ තමයි හදන්නේ.
So this so-called being has arisen within this physical body.
ඒ භෞතික ශරීරයක ඉඳගෙන භෞතික ශරීරයක් කොහොමත්ම ආරම්භන කරන්නේ නැති මනසක්.
So now Arupavacha.
අරුපා.
So even though the meditator still has the normal physical body, when a meditator attains this immaterial absorption, what arises in him or her is a kind of mind and mentality which has nothing to do at all with any kind of matter.
එතකොට නාම ධර්ම කොටසක් විතරක් ආරම්භන කරනවා.
So what functions as an object for such kind of mind is only like part of the mentality actually is working, and not even all of the mentality, just part of the mentality is working as the object for such a mind.
රූපයන්ගෙන් වෙන් වූ නාමය පවතින වෙලාව.
It is the time where what functions is only the part of the mentality that is completely removed and outside of materiality. So that part of the mental part is working, so nothing else.
ඉතින් වේදනාව සංඥාව ආරමුණු කරන්නේ නැතුව හටගන්න හේකුත් නෙවෙයි. වේදනා සංඥා අරමුණු කරන්නේ නැතුව හටගන්නවනේ. දැන් මේ රූපේ තේරෙන්නේ නැතුව එහෙම එකක් නෙවෙයි.
Then there is other thing that sometimes or some parts of the body, no feeling or experiencing and no perception works with those parts of the body. So this is completely something different to this immaterial absorption.
තෙරුවන් සරණයි දැතිය සුවපත්
අර තව ප්‍රශ්න තිබුණා ඊයේ කවුරු හරි සිංහල කෙනෙක් අහනවා අර මොග්ගලාන සමයුත අර බුදුහාමුදුරු මොග්ගලාන හාමුදුරන්ට අර ඥාන වලින්
අපි හෙට කියමු.
So there was another question left over from yesterday. Somebody was asking that Venerable Mahamoggallana, for his attainment of Arahatship, was given specific instruction that was using all kind of absorptions. So now these days, some teachers, they don't talk about absorptions or things like that. So Lokam says this question will be taken up tomorrow. So may you be
Tattaro Dhamma Vadanti Ayuvanno Sukhan Balam.
May you be well and happy.